sense of why you're super excited about Indonesia.
Great to be here. We've been very excited about Southeast Asia more broadly over the last 4 years. I think we've seen the internet economy in this part of the world scale dramatically. It's gone from when we started investing in 2016 from a $30 billion internet economy to $100 billion. A big driver of that is Indonesia. Just the young demographic, a mobile-first population. You're seeing some incredible founders and teams that are taking on ways of transforming large industries. So that's what's really exciting us about Indonesia and the region. If you look at it, we've made investments in several companies, Ninja Van, Caro, PayFast, and most recently Ula. And it's part of our kind of approach of looking and backing great founders that are addressing big pain points. And we see large industries that are ready to be transformed in the region.
And when you take a look at Indonesian unicorns, a few of them are gunning for huge IPOs. How much of a game changer will that be for the startup scene in the country?
Again, when we started investing in 2016, you had across the region, you had about 7 unicorns. That number's double right now. You have 13 unicorns, several of them kind of becoming larger and kind of decacorns. I think for an ecosystem to mature, you do want the next level of evolution, where you kind of get exits. Exits are good from firm standpoint, but also create serial entrepreneurs and just very healthy for the ecosystem. So we see it as a natural evolution, whether it's exits via IPOs or M&A, and that should start happening over the next 2 to 3 years. There are a lot of learnings from other markets, and we track economies and tech ecosystem in other parts of the world. I was tracking one in kind of Israel, and what's remarkable there, and several learnings for Southeast Asia, was each year you have about $5 billion to $7 billion of exits per year, and cumulatively from about 70 to 80 backed VC companies. So you'd want some of that to kind of shape up in this part of the world. And we see it's early signs, but we're very optimistic on what this region has over the next kind of 3 to 5 years, both for investments and then over time the scale and for exits.
Gojek, Tokopedia, in talks for a merger. Is it a sign of a consolidation trend that's happening in the country, you think?
I think you see some of that happening, and whether it's at the kind of unicorn, decacorn level, but you'll also see some of that happening with kind of smaller companies as well, which is kind of, does it make sense for kind of companies to come together? What is really exciting is this part of the world, you're seeing strong digital adoption. And I think the way businesses are getting run are kind of changing. And so I think there will be situations where companies will think about seeing other ways of coming together to kind of transform big industry. But I think the key word is partnership. And can these companies partner with each other? Can they partner with big corporates? That's also a big philosophy that we have at B Capital, which is an ability for kind of startups or early stage companies to kind of partner with large corporates. So we see that as a kind of a big trend and in a way where you can increase just the way companies scale. I was looking again at some of the facts, and what is exciting, again, in this part of the world, countries like Indonesia is probably one of the highest as a percentage digitized from an economy standpoint. So if you just look at data of what percentage of the economy is digital versus overall GDP, you have about 15 emerging economies in that top 30 list, and Indonesia is kind of right up there along with China. And for companies to kind of do that, you do want to have partnerships, and so you will see several M&A take place.
Kabir, tell us a little bit of what's in the pipeline. What's the next big thing you've invested in going to bear fruition?
Our focus is we take companies which have a global first approach. We've now got we've got 60 companies in our portfolio. We've got $1.5 billion of assets that we're kind of managing. And what we see is large transformation happening, whether it's trends like AI and machine learning that's permeating and impacting different industries. Take an example of this part of the world, banking and financial services, and take a market like Indonesia. What is incredible is that 50% of the adult population is either unbanked or underbanked. That's a kind of a big trend. You'd expect digital adoption to take place even further. You'd expect several digital-first banks to come up. And so financial services is an area and financial inclusion is kind of a big topic, a big area, especially in this part of the world. Globally, we are seeing companies, whether it's companies like Innovations, iCertis, Evidation Health, which leverages technology and product development across the world, whether it's centers and R&D in places like Pune and Gurgaon, in Jakarta, and serving the globe. And so we see that big trend happening, and that's only going to kind of continue in the next year and 2-3 years from time.
Tell me also here, we've got these so-called SPACs, as it were, these special acquisition vehicles. Now, there's a move from them, from the US and Europe, to come to Asia. We're seeing a bit of that. They're a bit later stage, but how do they change the game?
SPACs have been around for the last several years. I think just 2020 saw some of them come of age. You had almost like 250 SPAC IPOs, cumulatively about $80 billion. If you look at US IPOs, 50% of them were kind of SPACs. I think more broadly, what it means is, to the earlier point, we talk of exits. It's just so important for this part of the world in particular. And so you will see a lot more of kind of companies that are later stage, thinking about whether it's direct listing, indirect listing, M&A. And so you will just see it as part of a push in the ecosystem to have exits, and that's just one avenue. But clearly you saw last year, just based on activity and quality, it had come of age. And so you will probably see a lot more companies, and even in this part of the world, access those as well as markets and explore M&A.
Well, absolutely, but you're going in, Series A, Series B funding rounds. They're coming in later here, so it's an alternative to an IPO. Ultimately, is it not?
They are, and for us, at B Capital, we focus on the Series B stage onwards to kind of to companies the Series or I'd say the kind of pre-IPO stage. So that's our kind of focus area. And so for several companies, whether it's other venture fund portfolios, they will kind of access different ways of exiting, whether it's direct or kind of the indirect listing approach. You have seen, again, in the last 3-4 years, companies scale up rapidly, and they scale up rapidly across industries like healthcare, financial services, transportation, and some of them will want kind of to find other pools of capital. And it is great to see those pools of capital mature and become available to the ecosystem and kind of companies that have shown that ability to kind of scale and deploy capital effectively.
Kabir, quickly, you talk about exits in Southeast Asia. We've seen few exits in Southeast Asia that makes you, I guess, pay attention, except for C. Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's a natural maturing of the ecosystem. 4 years back, 4 or 5 years back, when we started investing, there's always a question saying, is there enough capital at the Series B, Series C stage? And you've seen that kind of got addressed. You've seen several companies that got invested into, companies in the enablers of commerce, in logistics, in transportation, and healthcare. And you've seen some of those kind of scale up and mature. And so it's now a natural evolution when you look at the next 3 to 5 years. We saw that in other ecosystems as well. We saw that in China 20 years back. We saw that in India 10 years back. We saw it in Israel 5 years back. Where the ecosystem starts to mature, then the ability to kind of exits start to happen. And there's just a very natural evolution of the ecosystem. Yes, we've had a very successful and clearly very successful public listing of C, and I think there will be others that follow. I think there'll be others that follow in the sense of M&A. This part of the world has got a lot more attention from kind of large strategics to kind of think about targets here. You will have also you'll have some of the larger players buying out some of these smaller startups. You'll have some of those type of exits. And so part of kind of M&A, and I think you will have a lot more kind of IPOs coming in. So we're very hopeful and optimistic. I think coming back, you've seen the internet economy get to $100 billion. We think this will triple to $300 billion in the next 3 to 4 years. And as part of that scale up, you'll see several large companies emerge, which take on large industries. financial services, healthcare, transportation, logistics. And as they become larger and need deeper pools of capital, you will see very interesting exits from this part of the world. So we're very optimistic. It clearly does require work. It requires an effort from the ecosystem to kind of come together. And I think this is an ecosystem which is proven to kind of work well, pattern match about what's happening in the world, and I'm very excited by it.